Hey everybody, this is Steven Galata with Brutal Resonance, and I am here with. Go ahead.
Magic from Sid 31.
Gotcha. And you're over in the UK right now, right?
I am indeed. I'm UK in the Manchester, which is the real cultural heart of the UK. Best city you can live in.
Would you fight over that?
Fucking too right, I would. I fought to get to this city. I absolutely love it.
And speaking of which, I read on Facebook that you are. I'm not sure if you still are, but you were part of a fight club for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, I used to just call it Fight Club because
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. I used to do a lot of MMA. That stopped during lockdown, unfortunately, and then I started getting with other hobbies. It's something I want to get back into because
Hmm.
I really, really enjoyed it. Um, Fists always have the right of way, and it's kind of challenging when you're in the office all week or when you're doing art, music, and you're there for like 6, 7 days just doing something creative. It's just fun to get punched because it resets your brain, because it goes back to instinct challenges
Absolutely.
rather than rather than big existentialist artwork. When someone's gunning for you, you've got to react, and it really, really helped me. So I do miss it, and it's something I want to get back into.
Yeah. What style were you training in?
It was just MMA. Years ago, I used to do Wado karate. I got up to purple belt, and I absolutely loved that. But I had to move from that because being in my early 20s, I put in a lot of hours to do my karate, and a lot of hours to do my music for the first band I was in. And being in my 20s, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to push my music. So something had to give. So I did it for my music, and it all didn't go far. But I was my purple belt, and that's my preferred style. So I used to bring a lot of that into the MMA.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I've been doing martial arts or MMA, or what my sensei calls progressive martial arts, for the past, 10 or 11 years, maybe a bit longer than that. I started in 11th grade of high school, and he's the same way. We do like literally mixed martial arts. He has a Filipino background, so uses a lot of kali sticks, and he does a lot of knife
Mm,
fighting and defense.
mm.
So we focus more on the practical self defense. Like, what do you do if somebody comes at you with a knife in the street? And the answer, of course, is run away.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are like,
So it's the ultimate self-defense is the art
yeah,
of legging it.
exactly.
It works every time, but
Yeah.
sometimes there's a bit more to it. And what I really like about
Yep.
MMA or any martial arts, it's a mental discipline. Uh, when you have spent years sparring and you've been able to floor bigger people than you, not like a, hey, yeah, I'm so hard.
Yeah.
It just gives you a confidence in your eyes and your body language. And
Hmm.
that is often enough to stop somebody. 99% of all the fights I've seen it's always been someone just thinking that they're harder than you just because they're arseholes.
Yep.
And as soon as you give them that one bit of doubt, when they can see that you're willing to defend yourself or able to,
Hmm.
or if they pick on you, they may come off worse off. As soon as that flick of doubt enters the brain, the fight's over.
Yep.
And that's what always works, and that's what saved me. There's very few times I've had a punch up and um, there's very few times I've come to it where it's come to the punch up and I've had to use force, and both those times have worked really well.
Yeah.
Um, but other times it's just they back down once you're standing there and you've got your posture and you've got that confidence.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was blessed by my father's side, so he's half Sicilian, and he was like 6 foot some when he was younger. So I got his genes, but of course between the hair and my pale skin, I got the Irish blend there too from my mother's side, right? So, but I'm current throughout my like childhood, I was always like 6 foot around that, in my teenage years, and right now I'm 6'1" and I weigh 280 pounds. So
Mm.
there's been a lot of times where like I'll be talking with my coworkers and like, yeah man, I bet you've been in a ton of fights, because I work out. They see that I'm kind of bigger, and I'm just like, no, I haven't been. And they're like, how come? And I was just like, I don't go looking for a fight on the street, and when people see me walking down the street, they're just like, I don't want to fight him. It's one or the other. So,
But
um,
for myself, I have struggled a lot with violence because I am 6'1" and 3/4 now,
yeah,
um, and that's kind of tall. But I'm
yes,
also really slender,
yeah,
and I don't really carry a sort of a macho chemistry about with me.
hmm,
And things are better now, but for most of my life, people have assumed I'm queer, and I've been bullied incredibly for it. You know, homophobes just latch
Yep.
onto you in the bar and just give you a whole lot of homophobic abuse, and it's been horrible so far. A lot of my life, I've not really felt safe.
Yeah.
Martial arts has helped me do that.
Oh, absolutely. I'd say the same for myself. And from a lot of what other people have told me, martial arts has actually just boosted their self confidence in that respect. I mean,
That's an important thing. It
mhm,
really works wonders.
yeah.
Although I will admit that being able to do martial arts, it recognizes that you've got a gift of your own physical health anyway. Not
Hmm.
everyone is able to do that. So I don't want to be in a position where I say people go and do martial arts. It's like, well, I'm not well enough, or
Yep.
I'm not able enough. It's just something I was able to do, and I'm quite fortunate, and some people aren't.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the other things that a lot of people talk about when it comes to self defense is like general safety and awareness too. And it's just like when I go out in public, if I see people walking down the street, I always say, "Hey, how you doing?" to them. You know, something as simple
Mm,
as that. And the reason being is because it's like at that point, it's like even if they didn't mean you any harm, but if it just seems it, they know though that you're looking at them, that you've seen them, and it's just
mm,
that little detail that kind of like just makes the situation go by quicker. So
mhm, mhm,
I learned that from one of a guest martial artist that came to our class one day, and he was talking about practical and realistic self defense, and he was like,
mm,
"That's what I always do." He said he was one time in a store. There's a group of guys who were eyeballing him the whole entire time he was in like Walmart or
mm,
Target or whatnot, and he was like, sure, they were going to start following him because he saw their eyes,
mm,
and all he did was say, "Hey guys, how you doing?" Simple as
mhm.
that, and casually walked off. And the way he carried himself, they were just like, "Not today." So
Yeah, it's the psychology of it.
it's a beautiful
Uh,
thing. So
yeah, you don't have to be a hard case. You don't have to be a
yep,
tough person, in reality. But being able to open that question for them to think, are they a tough case? That's all you need to do.
exactly. So. Well, enough about martial arts, and let's actually talk about what you do.
I
So,
do another form of incredible martial arts and violence and tough guy.
so
It's all about the black and the psychology. It's music. You've
exactly,
got to be tough.
because it's like you're talking about your own personality, and you seem like a very charismatic person. I've seen your Facebook posts. You look like like to have fun and just generally just be a chill dude. But then when you see like, Sid 31 on stage, you become this like roaring monster like a fucking gorilla. So so
I
tell me.
think that sums it up.
Yeah, so tell me about that. How do you what persona do you go on stage with, Or is it coming from
It's
within?
it's a good question. I think it comes from within. Is it primal rage? Is it me just expressing myself? Am I being the person I want to be? It's a difficult question. I have thought about that quite a lot. Um, but I'll give you the clue where it came from.
Mm.
I've always done punk bands and stuff like that. You've got to have a certain bit of gnarliness and energy and passion and
Yeah.
raging against all these things. But I was doing an electronic project a few years ago, and I produced and wrote all the music, did all the synthy stuff, and I had this wonderful singer, and he did most of the lyrics, and he was a really gifted musician, but God, could he be an arsehole when he wanted to be?
Yeah.
And he was always throwing his dummy out. He knew he was a good singer, and we had this gig, and he's like, I need this, and this, and this, and I tried to compromise, and then he's like, oh no, I need to do this, so I'm quitting. And we had this gig only a few days ago, and he kept throwing his toys out the pram again. Oh, I'm going to quit unless you do this. So I'm like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
And he really generally thought I wouldn't be able to do it, and I didn't know if I could. And it was only a few days ago, but a few days away. So I did the gig, and I was so fucking angry with him, really angry with him. I did the vocals, and this Sid 31 persona just came out,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit like what you said earlier on. I'm quite chill. I'm quite
Yeah.
a happy guy, and a lot of my friends went there and expected me to be behind the keyboards and all that, all being happy like I'd done all the thing. And they're like, "What the fuck happened to you, dude? You just exploded." All of them just looked really confused. But that energy just came out, and I'm really not quite sure where it comes from.
So yeah, no, I've seen like so many memes on the internet about like the metal punk vocalist backstage where they're just chilling out, and then like on stage just like the Incredible Hulk, and that's what happens. So, but I also seen you do like a lot of kind of post-apocalyptic cosplay sort of stuff, like for Sid 31. Like that's the best way I can describe it. You look like something straight out of Mad Max too. Um, does getting in costume also encourage you to get all fired up?
I think it's part of that. It's getting yourself into a certain headspace. The apocalyptic stuff has kind of changed for me now. I don't do quite as much as that. I'm still very much inspired by the Mad Max aesthetics, um, and it goes deeper than just fanboying a film.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about putting this war paint on, and it makes me think about first Sapiens, um, what they did. How did they paint for war? For war? The original cavemen or African savanna plains. All the paints that they did. How did they make themselves look? And so I'm more inspired by that now, and it does look very Mad Max. And after
Mm-hmm.
an apocalypse, we may all go back to that. Um, but my apocalyptic view has kind of changed recently, mostly for two things. One, we have been through an apocalypse. It's not an extinction event. It's been an ending of a way of life for most of us. The COVID and lockdowns, most venues aren't making it, and it's changed all of us how we interact and how we see things. And we don't quite see it, but the world has changed. And I don't want to go through another apocalyptic event. It was a light apocalypse, like a diet apocalypse. In the UK, only 250,000 people died. But that's a fucking huge amount, and we've been through that. Secondly, um, I'm a big fan of all the Mad Max stuff and post-apocalyptic stuff. But
Post
one
punk.
thing dawned, just post-punk stuff. But one thing dawned on me, and it's just how your brain pings. How bad would this smell?
Yeah, seriously.
And then I just saw them all. I bet they just smell like years worth of ball sweat. And I was like,
Yeah,
no,
you know,
no. It's like goth kids are gonna smell better. They always know how to smell. And then apocalyptic people's like, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to go within 20 feet of their underwear. So that did a bit of a
true.
change for me.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me. It's kind of like when Evil which one was it? 8 came out when with the giant tall vampire woman. And
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
daughters and everybody was fiending for them. And don't get me wrong, they look good for video game characters, but
Mm.
other people were making the point. It's just like they're vampires, so they probably don't bathe, and their mouth probably smells like shit. You know, when you think about it that way, it's just like takes away all the attractiveness.
Yeah. So I think if we did get smell-o-vision,
Yeah, right.
um, I think that would change things. Can you imagine if we could smell Mad Max 2? I think everyone would just be throwing up at home or in the
Yeah,
theaters.
as you said, it would just be body odor and fuel that you'd smell gasoline. And nobody
I'm
wants to
I'm
do that.
happy with the smelling of a gasoline. I'll be happy with that. That's
Yeah.
that's quite a lovely smell. But everything else, like everyone else's fucking butts after having no bog roll, it would just be fucking
Yeah,
horrendous.
because it's like you can't spare the water to wash yourself. So what do you have? Like rags and sand.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I know Tank Girl did a good bit on that where she showered in sort of like a fine powder, which is like what a lot of people use, like is it a dry shampoo?
hmm
I suppose that will work, but that's has a bit of society still functioning. It's not very nice, but it's still functioning.
yeah.
Mad Max is like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah. And also adding on to that, your costume design is like you have a set of wings, or I'm not sure if you got them back yet. I saw that bit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll talk about
Fucking
that too.
Italian customs.
But
Yeah, Italian customs.
before we get into that, the wings, how did they fit into that theme then? Your stage play.
Well, there's a lot of themes that I have, and it all comes back from one thing, and it's not something I've talked about much. I've talked about it a couple of times, and people's reactions are a little bit unusual, but I can understand why people don't take a step back when I talk about it. But I'll talk about it here. So this is me coming out quite a lot more. When I was very young, I used to have seizures and fits, and I'd go into this other world. I understand the things that I saw when I was having these fits was just my young child brain trying to process and understand the world, things I'd seen on TV, on the front page of newspapers, or talking about it. So my brain took all the information that I knew going on around me, and it tried to work it out together. and it just came up with this really fucking weird concept. So I'd have these seizures, and I'd go back into these like in my seizures, I'd see these like demons and fallen angels and stuff. And I think part of it was from being young and seeing the moral panic of a punk culture, because all these fallen angels just looked like punks. And one of the guy, I don't know where I got this name from, was called Necron. Oh, kind of a goth name. And for a 7-year-old kid to know that name, Necron, I must have got it off TV or something. But he looked just like Sid Vicious, but they were all fallen angels. And so the angel side and the religious side is something I'm really, really fascinated in, and that's part of that, the wings. And they also look fucking cool as well.
Yeah, I like them a lot. So
Mm.
now, moving on to the next thing.
Mm.
Where are your wings? Are you ever getting those back?
Oh God,
Wait,
they've
wait.
been stuck in customs in Italy
We gotta
because the
start for the
Italian cus
yeah. We gotta start from the beginning though. For those that don't know, what exactly happened to your set of pretty wings?
So I hire them out for a nice price, and because they make shoots look really cool, and
Hmm.
mostly they've been used for fetish shoots, so I can't really share or promote those things.
Gotcha.
But there's a fashion house in Italy, and they are doing Milan Fashion Week, and they asked me to hire them. So I'm like, fuck yeah, this is my golden ticket. And I was even thinking of like, why don't I just fly over there with them? And like, it's great for the social media. It's like, hey yo, Milan Fashion Week, yeah.
Yeah.
But I decided not to do that. But we sent the wings over, and it took days and days and days just to go there because of Brexit and the UK coming out of the European Union. So the customs thing was absolute fucker. And we even planned a few days ahead to make sure, but no. So we missed Fashion Week, and now the Italian customs have seized them because I don't even know anymore. It's just they think I'm trading as a business. They want my registered business address and details, but I'm not. I'm just a bloke hiring out some wings, but they want to know why I'm hiring out wings if I'm not a business, and it's fucking horrible. And it looks as though they might seize them, and I may never get them back because I can't answer the questions in the way that they want. Um, they are insured because the company I used to hide the wings through come with an insurance. It's an organization called Fat Llama, and they're
Hmm.
really, really brilliant. But I've got a funny feeling that the insurance won't pay out because the wings haven't been lost, they've been confiscated. So I may not get my insurance money on that. So I'm really heartbroken.
Yeah, that's actually kind of sad because those were a dope piece, and I always appreciated seeing them in your sets. So, but
Yeah, I love the wings because for those that haven't seen it, most of the thing about angel wings, and mostly kind of cutesy, sort of nice wings or hen
mhm.
party wings. These were fucking magnificent. They were huge. They were nearly 6 foot in span, and the body language that these wings had, they just looked confident. They were just an incredible work of art.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can only give you my best wishes and hope that you get them back. Unfortunately, I have no contacts
Thank
in
you.
in Italy's customs department.
But you're Sicilian. You're from Sicilian, so you may have some interesting connections there.
Potentially. All right.
Sorry for the crash stereotype, but
It is quite all right. I mean, Goodfellas and Casino exist for a reason. So. All right, now let's talk about the model airplane that you have next to you. You brought that out.
ooh,
Oh,
boom!
so,
One of my joys, the Dakota, the DC-3.
I've
Uh,
seen your post on Facebook, and you seem to be huge into like World War II era tanks and aircraft. If I'm correct in saying
mm,
that.
Absolutely. I, yeah, I've been like that since being a young kid. It's my some people say a hobby.
Hmm.
I don't really have hobbies. I just have it daily obsessions.
Yeah. So do you build a lot of these, or is it kind of just like something you get every once in a while?
I'm building a lot of them now. Um,
Gotcha.
it's something I really love because a little bit like actually this interesting connection. A little bit like doing martial arts
Hmm.
helps reset your brain. Doing a lot of these kits help reset my brain. I never win any awards doing these, but when you just sat there painting or sculpting, tiny knife work, you're not thinking about anything else in the world.
Hmm.
stress the job doesn't happen, drama, getting that snare sound right in your
Yeah.
mix doesn't happen. You just and you can lose hours, and
Hmm.
I absolutely love it. It just feels so wholesome,
Yeah.
even though I'm most of the time doing a model instrument of war, but it just feels really, really right.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way because I mean, you can see a little bit over there. I got like Lego sets, and
Yeah.
I've loved those since I was a child. So, and whenever I buy myself like something like $100 Lego set or something, I can just sit there and build it for like 3 4 hours. It's just you're right. It's like everything just goes away. It's just you and that.
I'm also using it for therapeutic purposes as well. Because my age, I've realized I've got to plan out the next 30 years of my life, and it's good to keep yourself active.
Hmm.
And doing something like that is keeping your manual dexterity going, fine motor details. And recently, I decided to do a more kits and more complicated kits, the ones that I'm going to spend hours swearing at. But before I did that, I was recognizing like it's a good way forward to keep my brain active,
Hmm.
keep away any sort of like I forgot what it's called, sort of brain diseases as you get older.
Hmm.
So I can make more complex kits, or why don't I get back into Lego?
Hmm.
And so I was looking at doing some of the really big Technic Lego kits.
Yeah.
Um, but you don't generally paint those. With model kits, you're building them, putting them together, you follow instructions like you do with Lego, but you also
Hmm.
like paint them and you envision what they're going to look like painted in schemes, and you can do the research in various schemes. So it gives me an extra layer of brain work to do. So
Yeah.
I started doing more of these.
Yeah, I tried getting into like model painting at one point because I'm a huge tabletop RPG guy. Like I love Dungeons and
Hmm.
Dragons. I really like Pathfinder and stuff like that. So I bought like one of those pre-painted kits, and I swiftly found out I don't have the patience for that because I watched a tutorial for like a half hour, and I was just like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I just set it aside, and I was like, I'm
Yeah,
gonna go do something else.
yeah. There's a lot of patience involved, and the only person to impress is yourself. A lot of the
Hmm.
tutorials and model kits and that, they're incredible, and I think some of them probably need help because the level of details. There's one guy, and he put a whole lot of paint chips, like how a tank would have a paint chipping and stuff like that, and did a video on it, and he said like he'd done 48 hours worth of minute paint chipping, and I'm like, that starts getting beyond being a healthy hobby, and it's a little bit. Um, but the only test is like if you're doing something like what you've done, um, is the process enjoyable? And
Exactly.
each time you're doing it, you're going to get better at it. You're going to
Hmm.
get better at it, and that is a road I enjoy doing. I stay away from a lot of tutorial videos, especially model tanks and aircraft, because most of them are doing tutorials to win prizes. And this is where me being really pedantic gets annoyed. A lot of the model tanks always have lots of rust all over them and things like that. And a lot they don't look healthy. And my understanding is that tanks in the field, they'll get covered in dust, mud, fine. But tanks don't rust because if you've got a tank that looks that rusty on the inside, what's it going to look on the inside? I mean, sorry, if that rusty on the outside, what are they going to look like on the inside?
Yeah.
The bearings is going to be fucked. They're going to be serviceable. And also, your sergeant major is going to bollock you like fuck for letting your tank get into that state of disrepair. And we don't see any rusty tanks in service from
No.
World War II or the 50s. So a lot of it is myth, but they win prizes and they tell you how to do all this super duper shading and things like that. And it's fantasy. That's not what military aircraft look like. There are a few exceptions, but generally that's not what they look like. So I stay away from a lot of tutorial videos. Um, and it's easy to get disheartened when you look at what they do and say, "Oh, fuck, that's great. I'm going to do that," and then you do it, and it looks like an absolute shit piece of work. But you just got to keep progressing.
Yeah. So maybe I'll give it a shot again and just kind of like read up a little bit and just do it on my own terms. So, but anyway, let's get back to the little band you run called Sid 31 now. Let's the first thing that I've never actually asked you this, I don't think, but where does that name come from, Sid 31?
I'm super glad you asked. You may have noticed a bit of a theme during the interview so far is about keeping my cognitive abilities
Yes.
all going. That's because I am of a certain age. I'm 50 in a few months' time,
Mhm.
and it's the the 31 comes from a year, and I'll explain. So I'm of a certain age, and my dad had me when he was fairly elderly.
Hmm.
Uh, and my dad was born in 1931. So that's where the 31 comes from. His name was Sidney, and everyone used to just call him Sid, or spell it Sidie. And he always used to go, no, it's Sydney with a Y, with a Y.
Hmm.
So as a young kid, I thought SYD. Is that how you spell Sid? So Sid comes from my dad's name, and 31 from his age. When I wanted to do what is now Sid 31 many, many years ago, I was looking for a band name and I couldn't think of one. But I looked down on my arm, and most people get dad or mum on the arms. But years and years ago in my 20s, I got Sid 31 instead of a dad tattoo. And I looked down, I was like, why don't they fucking call it that? That's cool. So I named my band after my tattoo, which was cryptic clue, or a cryptic name for my dad. So it's quite a long story. But when my dad passed away, it was just as I was forming a new band,
Hmm.
and it just seemed right to name it after him. He was a really accomplished singer, very, very gifted, and I think it was just a really good way of honoring him. And he also sounds cool as fuck as well.
Yeah.
He wouldn't sound right having a band name just called My Dad.
I mean, it could work potentially, but who knows?
Yeah.
So, um, on that note, Sid 31, when did it start? Do you,
Yeah, it started a long time ago. I think it started 10 years ago. And I can't believe it's been 10 years. I feel cheated after lockdown now. I like, oh, it's 8 years. And also for the first year of Sid 31, I didn't really launch it. I just did a few small gigs just to see what the vibe was before I really pushed it. So it was like a trial run. So I'm sort of lying, I guess. I'm saying like Sid 31 as a going entity has only been really going 7 years,
hmm.
um, over a 10-year period.
Gotcha.
So yeah, t 10 years. I think it was 10 years early on this year or the end of last year. Yeah.
Now you've went through a bit of a few transitions as far as band members go for the throughout Sid 31's history. Can you tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about that? Like who was part of it, why you guys departed, so on and so forth?
Yeah, the Sid 31 thing is I've been in bands quite often, and I wanted to do something where I could explore my own thoughts and
Hmm.
feelings, my own um, vision of what music is.
Yeah,
And
because
Sid 31 is
from what I understand, Sid 31, it's all only produced by you. Like you make all the music and whatnot, correct?
yeah, it's a solo project. It's absolutely through and through solo project. So I play lead rhythm guitar, I play bass guitar, I do synths, I do samples, I do drum programming, I do vocals, obviously do lyrics. I do all the production. I do the executive production as well, which is all the money side of it, so make sure I can do it because I use a big studio and it costs a fucking fortune. So I do all that and it's a purely solo project. But I realized that doing that live, if it was just me, it's going to be boring. I'd have to try and do everything myself. I can't. So what I've always done is I've tried to get people who have got a charismatic personality to be my backing band.
Hmm.
We do struggle if we're a small band to say we've got backing bands because it's like who the fuck do they think he is? Is he like James Brown or something? Like, but
Yeah.
no, these are my backing artists. So I've always had backing people backing me at my live show. And some people come in, some people go out, some people work, some people don't, and that's just the way it is. Because I don't want Sid 31 to be a responsibility for people. I don't know. I don't ever want to say like, oh, we've got this gig, you need to be there or else, because people have lives. People have jobs, people have other bands as well. So my attitude has always been, if you can't make a Sid 31 gig, please tell us. I might do it without you, or I might get someone else in, or I might just cancel. You know, there's no pressure. And it's worked out really well, apart from one instance, and that got really, really messy,
Hmm.
which is unfortunate. And that came out a bit of a drama where, for some reason, rumor had got around that my backing band had done everything, and I was just a mere vocalist. And the label I was with at the time would have really pushed them as they're the Sid 31. But I'm like, I'm paying for it all. It's me. and people started asking questions about important things about Sid and not bringing me into that equation.
Hmm.
And the sort of penny dropped for me when I was supposed to be doing a UK tour, headlining UK tour, which I was really looking forward to, and I was paying for bits towards it with the label as well. And then they decided to have a decision. Wouldn't it be more cooler if we had a rotating headliner? And I understand that could be cool. So there'd be four bands, one band will open up one week and then the next slot, and then so on, and then another week, and so another day, then they'd be headlining. And that sounds really cool for networking, but I wasn't really brought into that conversation. And my backing band voted to change that without my decision, and the label went with them. I'm like, why are you asking them? It's my band, my project.
Hmm.
And so that became really, really difficult. And it got to a point where I can't work with you guys anymore because you're sabotaging my vision. If you want to do music, absolutely go and do it yourself. You feel free to do that. I've never pressured you. Good luck, but this is not my vision. And I felt like I was being pushed out of my own solo project, which is really, really unusual.
Yeah, that's really rough, you know.
Mm.
So because there had to be an understanding too, where you're just like, look, this is still a solo project. I just need live members to accompany me on stage.
Yeah, yeah, it got a bit bad with joking, but sometimes things said in the joking, but you can see it reflects their thoughts, and it's like they were working really well. But my backing band were working really closely with the label, which can work well. It's kind of nice. But when they start joking about, like, well, we can replace you, I'm like, no, you fucking can't.
Yeah,
I've got all the music files. What are you gonna do? But it's like when that sort of pressure starts coming in, I'm
yeah.
like, no, that's not right. So I think they learned a hard lesson. I don't think they expected me just to um, get rid of everyone,
Hmm.
and I did. One person came with me who was Cara, and she stuck with me for a good few years after that.
Hmm.
I think we had a good chemistry, myself and Cara, or Wolfie, as people may know, and yeah, the others, it was their loss.
Yeah. And Kara only recently departed the Sid 31, but from what I recall, she was a pretty damn good live drummer. At least when
Oh,
I.
she was fucking incredible.
Yeah,
It's going to be a hard push to replace her
yeah.
because what I'm looking for in a backing band is other front people. I don't want to be on stage and everyone else are just like shoved literally in the backing ground with no personality, just plodding on. I want people that bring out the spirit of life. So when it all comes together, it's like a bonfire that you're seeing,
Hmm.
and everyone gels that. And Cara was unbeatable with that. She was absolutely phenomenal, and I think she's gonna be the only person I'm going to struggle to replace. And what I'm thinking about doing is not replacing them, but just finding someone that can bring their own vibe or energy rather than trying to
Exactly.
match Cara.
Hmm.
Cara was amazing, and I've loved all my times gigging with her.
Hmm. So, who do you currently have in your live lineup aside from yourself, of course?
We've got Shavo, phenomenal guitarist, and the reason why I'm laughing at a phenomenal guitarist is they're a bass player
Hmm.
and they're an incredible bass player. But as I said, I like to bring something unique uh, to the stage, and they are a good front person. But the uniqueness I got from them is I wanted them to play guitar,
Hmm.
but I don't want them to play guitar like a guitarist. I want them to play guitar like a bass player. That means having a different sense of groove and different sense of rhythm, and no fucking shitty guitar solos. And so we came up with the sound. It's a lot of Shabo's ideas, but we worked it. And live, they've got this incredible sound. So they use really heavy gauge thick strings, and it's massively down tuned. So it's really chuggy. It's dun, 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 dun. But rather than having a metal sound, which a lot of chugginess would do, we've gone for a lot of post-punk soundscapes. So there's chorus and reverb on there, and it's mixed in with the sound of one of my favorite bands, Discharge, and it's just got this unbeatable sound. And just to capture, we played a festival a few weeks ago, and we were just doing a line check. We got them to do the line check, and these amazing sound tones came out. And somebody came to see me afterwards, like, "Oh, we didn't know who you were. We weren't coming to see you, but we heard this sound of the guitar. We've never heard anything like it before, so we just had to come and see what the fuck it was." It's like, oh yeah, that's our Shavo, the guitarist,
That's
and
dope.
It's magical.
That has to be like the best compliment ever for as a musician, just to be like, we've never heard this before and we had to see it, you know?
Yeah, I was so chuffed, really, really chuffed, and I get a lot of reaction from people that see us when we perform. Sometimes you get people say, "I've never seen anything like that before. What the fuck are you doing? I love it," and they become lifelong fans and buy every single merch,
Yeah.
and they just lose their shit to it because everyone likes to think they're doing something different, and mm, sometimes we are, sometimes we aren't. But the live show that I'm bringing, uh, I don't think anyone is really doing that.
Yeah. And, I mean, if you ever make it to the States, maybe I'll see you. Or if you ever make it over to the UK, maybe I'll see you. But until then, I'll hold my judgment. So, but
It's such an explosive thing, and sometimes I can't believe what's going on. One of the best compliments I've ever seen was one young woman. She didn't look like a fan of the band as such. She dressed a little bit differently and whatnot, but she was there to see all the bands,
mhm.
and she lost her shit to it so much she was foaming at the mouth. And I'm like, what the fuck? It just brings out a reaction in people. And going back to what we said earlier about my shouting, my screaming,
Mhm.
I think it connects with some people at a certain way. It's not going to connect with everyone,
Mhm.
but it does something deep inside in people, and you can see that reaction in people. There's something there that people aren't exploring within themselves, and it seems to be like a trigger for them. And it's wonderful. It's scary, but it's wonderful.
So, aside from the live history, I want to dive into a bit of the actual musical history now.
Mm.
Your most recent album is Machine Ready, which I actually have right here because it's the dope CD. I love this
Thank
thing.
you.
So, and to me, this is the best that Sid 31 has ever been. You know, I love the whole album from start to finish. Obviously, I wasn't huge into the dub songs. I think I stated that in the review, but that's just because I don't
Hmm.
like dub in general. I tried it 1,000
Mm.
times, but everything was great. And the title track has actually become one of my go-to songs when I'm hitting a max PR in the gym. So, like, I wait for the right in the intro when it's starting to roll up and it goes silent for a moment. You just scream like really loud. That's when I like press, and that's when I push like really hard. I'm
That's
like,
amazing.
yeah, it like gets me hyped. But tell me about like your evolution of Sid 31 because Machine Ready to me is like I wouldn't say it's strictly industrial metal because I've read like, your liner notes and all the influences that you had it going in there, but it is on the harsher metal side.
Mm. So 31, it's it's just me exploring the soundscapes in my head. Um, I'm going to go back to my seizure dreams now as well.
Mm-hmm.
When I had my seizure fits and dreams as a kid, I got all these demons and these rebels and whatnot. But there's something that was in there, and it's hard to convey. They had the soundscape. They, whenever they're talking or whenever they're walking around, there's this sound always there. And that's the sound of your brain fucking up because you're having a seizure. But I've always looked for that sound, and there's certain bands that have similarities to it. And it's not normally a genre. Some electronic and dubstep artists did that. The really early dubstep, the good stuff before it went all prog, and Neurofunk, which is like a really heavy form of drum and bass. They have this just gnarliness to it, and that sits really well in my brain. And that gnarliness is also in with a lot of punk bands like Discharge uh, and some Motorhead as well. There's just a certain sound and vibe that works for me, and I'm always wanting to explore that more and more and more. And that's how Machine Ready came along. The opening bits of Machine Ready with the Brahms, like, whoa, and the ooh, it just sounds like my seizure dreams. There's something there. It sounds apocalyptic. It sounds like Judgment Day. It sounds like chaos, but it also sounds like nervousness. There's a nervous energy to it, and that's what I put in. Trying to find bands that match that is kind of interesting, so I can explain it to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But to say your whole soundscape is not inspired by genres as such, but by seizures, it's kind of hard to get people to understand.
Absolutely. I mean, like that's a. I mean, I knew a couple people in my personal life who had like seizures and whatnot. And it's always scary to see, but translating that into musical form is like it's an art form. It really is, you know. So, one of the songs that I also found very interesting is I gotta read it because I know it's something New Stars, "Collapsing New Stars."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that one of my favorite songs off the album, but it's not like any other songs on the album. In my opinion, it kind of hits that like new wave vibe as well.
Mm.
Tell me a little bit about that one. What was that about?
It's it's inspired a little bit like the first Ministry album,
Yeah,
the one that he hates, the very synthy stuff.
yeah.
But it is new wave. It is synthy, and going back to the Seizure stuff, there's some bands that capture that really really well. Really dark synth. It's right, but it's not right. So the soundscape came that from that, and I'm talking about also, excuse me, some of the Depeche Mode albums, Questioning Time, the first, well, both Joy Division albums, and I just want to write something that mixes all those together. The lyrics are about being a young punk, and it's a true story because all I write now are biographies or biographical songs. And it's about being a young punk in my first band, how we exploded really, really quickly in the local scene, and we
Hmm.
were tipped for the top, but it all went fucking horrible wrong. But it's that optimism we had when you're young and you think you can change the world and
Hmm.
you're going to change the world, and it it didn't work. And it's literally true, like as the lyrics say, like we were so punk. I had a great big pink Mohican there and I used to stomp around town. um, but the optimism when people were telling us we are rock stars, and you feel like you're gonna be rock stars because things got wild,
Hmm.
uh, and then it all just collapses just because of naivety, egos, and there's so many bands that are tipped for the top and they put everything into it. They're going to be the new stars, but they just collapse.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very universal song too, because a lot of the lyrics can hit hard home for anyone.
Mm.
Like one of the lines that I remember was "All we want is a place to belong. We were never right, but we were never wrong," which kind of just like encompasses the youth in general. Everybody thinks that they're still trying to find their place in the world, so
Mm.
it's very nostalgic in my opinion. So.
Thank you. It was good for me to go through that. And not just like, oh, them were the days, because I hate nostalgia. It's fucking bullshit. It really is.
Yeah.
But what I want to be is like, I know there's a lot of young people that listen to music and a lot of older people, and I want the younger people to recognize messages from older people. Because when I was younger, I'd love to have been sat down with someone old that talked with me, not talked at me, not talked down to me.
Hmm.
And that is, for me, a conversation that I want young people to understand. But I also want older people that have been through it to understand that, they're heard, these are their experiences too. And I want them to recognize that, well, I want them to feel like their experiences have been recognized. Everything they've done is not in vain.
Hmm. And moving on into the future, you sent me a few tidbits about the new album, and I'll be completely honest when I say that I forgot everything that you told me about it. So I like read it once, and I was just like, all right, cool, I have something to talk about, and I was like, ah, shit, I forgot to read over it before this. So tell us about a little bit about what's coming up for Sid 31.
Sid 31, the new album is all done, mastered, and already.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of working the best release time for it. The it's getting closer and closer, soundscape wise, to perfecting
Mm-hmm.
the seizure sounds. And I think after this album, I'm going to change to 31 more radically because this captures, I think, almost perfectly what I wanted to sound like. It's very much a almost a traditional punk album with a
Mm-hmm.
few darker differences. The soundscapes are very influenced by Venom and Motorhead and quite a few early black metal bands, uh, sort of Celtic Frost, and one of my favorite is Entombed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not nostalgic. I've used those ideas and run forward with a lot of contemporary bands like Bambi Thug, Wargasm UK, and Nova Twins. I've got to see these bands when they're small and now they're exploding, and
Mm-hmm.
it's because they use really good modern contemporary techniques. They don't just try and be like, oh, this was like in the past and recapture
Yeah.
that. So it's like Discharge, Motorhead, but fucking heavy and very modern.
Gotcha. Do
And I
you?
think it may upset a few people because at first glance it can sound like a traditional punk album,
Mm-hmm.
but give it a listen, you'll shit yourself.
Gotcha. And for those who are coming in, like, let's, because I think Machine Ready was one of your more successful albums, in my opinion, reached a wider
Yeah.
audience. For people coming off of that album, do you think that they'll be expecting what you're putting out here?
It's a bloody good question. I, I think everyone listening to the Machine album is going to come away with something different, what they want. There's a lot of electronic on the Machine Ready album. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of traditional industrial, like the title track. There's some proper like punk in there, and there's even a dub reggae song. So everyone that listens to it is going to think, "Oh, this is great. Let's progress it differently." So there's going to be people that think that it's not progressed in perhaps the way that they have done, but I'm pleased with it because at the moment there's a love for going back to the basic rawness of rock and roll,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's across nearly all genres now. The love for it is incredible, and I think people once they hear it, they're going to go like, "Yes, this is what is needed.
Yeah.
This is what the natural progression is." But I don't think they're going to guess that from the onset. Once they hear it, they're going to go, "Fuck yeah."
Yeah. Um, and do you have like a release date for it, or like a window when you want to get it out? I know you said that's kind of tough figuring that out right now.
It is tough figuring it out right now because the live band on each album I always promote the live band because without the live band, um, it would be difficult for Sid 31, and I want to put them on there because they're an influence on me. Um, so the artwork we've done some fucking great photo shoots that was going to be on this album. I'm going to have to redo those for the album release, and then it's looking for the optimum time for it to land. I wanted it to land this May, but because of the lineup change, I've put it back.
Mm-hmm.
So I might do it in March next year, just before festival season starts, or towards the end of this year. Um, it's just really tempting
Mm-hmm.
uh, to find. Well, I'm tempted to get it out now, but I want it
Yeah.
to have a proper release because it's a good album, and I really love it, and I want to give it a proper release rather than
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hey guys, please like this." I want it to like, "This is what I'm doing. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love the artwork. You're gonna love the video, and it's worthy of you because I think you are worthy. I want
Mm-hmm.
something that respects my audience.
Gotcha. Um, Physical formats. Are we looking at CDs again, or are we gonna go vinyl this time? Because I'm hoping to see some Sit 31 on vinyl in the worst way.
Everyone's asking for vinyl.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just so
the
fucking
the vinyl
expensive, man.
it is just printing is expensive because the demand of it is. No one expected, I think, 5 years ago for every sort of major artist in the world to cash
Mm-hmm.
back in the vinyl. So they've just hogged all the print runs. So it's been really, really difficult, and it is fucking expensive. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to recover the loss from the vinyl. Um,
Yeah.
what I might need to do is um, work in partnership with a label or distributor purely for the vinyl.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I'm looking at doing for delaying the album. I might say a couple of record labels and say, would you be interested in partnering up?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go, oh, please sign me, blah blah blah, because
Mm-hmm.
that's bullshit. Um, you go into it as a partnership. I've got these goods, I've put all this effort in, I've put all this
Yep.
money in it. Would you be able to meet me at least halfway and let's see what we can do about bringing out some exclusive merch like vinyl
Yep.
and some other goods as well?
Yeah, that's the way I always try to run Brutal. Is I never say it's just like, no,
Mm,
you're on our roster now. I always say we're collaborators or we're partners
mm.
because it's like an equal effort from both parties. It's like you're you're
Absolutely, absolutely.
you're writing the music,
There
you're
are some,
producing it.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. There's some labels that I've been interested in, and one where I've had a bit of difficulty before, where uh, they don't recognize you as a partner. They
hmm
recognize you as a signing, like a little bit like what you said. And it's like, no, I have a huge amount of say over what goes because
hmm
if I can put in the same or more money than a record label can, why am I with that record label?
Exactly.
And that had been an issue before.
Yeah. And I always say that, like, with Brutal, it's just like, I'm not taking over your social media accounts. I'm not taking your Spotify away from you. Like,
Yeah.
what I do for artists is, like, I work with artists that either A, don't want to print their own merch and don't want to run to the post office, or B, work with artists that just don't have the funds to do it themselves. And I'm just like, I'll take care of all that, and we split the profits if there are any. We don't really make a whole lot of money. Like, I just did I'm completely open and honest about this shit. Like, I just did my accounting run, because we do 6 month payouts, and we made $200 in that 6 months, and that's it of profit. And I'm just like, I'm okay with that, because this is more of a hobby for me than it is like a full-time profession. I like to do it for fun. So but yeah,
That's a good thing, because the money that I spend on Sid 31 normally does come back. And if it's at a loss in any merch, it's a loss that I can afford to lose, because it's fun and it's a hobby. And I've always said to my pals and even my backing band, when they say, what's about the future of the band? I'm like, well, when it starts being fun, I'll stop it. And I think that's a healthy way of any hobby or interest. When it starts being fun, don't do it. Don't break your heart over it.
And and that's the thing too with Brutal. It's just like, for a bit there, I was trying a little bit of everything, like as far as releases go, but then I finally nailed down like the theme/concept I'm going for. And I'm just like, this is where I'm happy, so this is where I'm staying. So, and it just takes time to learn everything, but
yeah.
But no, I think we had a very pleasant chat, a very insightful chat. I don't really have anything else to ask. I think we covered a lot. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about, I'll leave that in your hands.
No, at the moment, I've got a lot of free time. I just finished a training course. So over the next few months, I'm going to be back on my bullshit, even more media stuff, even more artwork. So prepare to be dazzled.
All right, sounds good. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Brutal Resonance podcast. I'm Steve, that's Magic, and we're going to say bye. So,
see you later, guys. Have fun, stay safe.